Narrator. Imagine a cage, not one forged from rusty iron or cold, unforgiving steel, but one spun from pure, blinding gold, encrusted with diamonds so flawless they make your eyes ache. Inside this cage sits a creature of breathtaking beauty, fed on the finest delicacies, draped in silks that cost more than a commoner's lifetime of agonizing labor. You might look at her and feel nothing but bitter envy. But what if I told you that the air inside this cage is toxic? What if I told you that every single diamond represents a shattered dream, and every silken thread is a meticulously crafted noose, slowly and silently tightening around her neck? We have been relentlessly conditioned by society to worship the illusion of royalty, to crave the glittering fairy tale of wealth and privilege. But today, I am going to brutally shatter that illusion. I am going to drag you down the dark, suffocating corridors of highborn power, where human lives are nothing but expendable chess pieces, and where a woman's soul is systematically crushed under the crushing weight of her own family's ambition. You will not want to look away, because this isn't just a story about a passive princess waiting for rescue. It is a bloody, agonizing, and ultimately glorious rebellion of the human spirit that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about freedom. Before we dive into the depths of this magnificent tragedy, please take a brief moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support is the powerful engine that gives us the motivation to continue uncovering these profound and breathtaking narratives for you. Wolf King Stories warmly welcomes you to a space where we peel back the glamorous facades of literature and cinema to expose the raw, bleeding truth underneath. Today, we step into the suffocatingly opulent world of Gianna's Choice, a masterpiece that serves not as a fleeting romance, but as a fiery manifesto of self-determination. Try to visualize Gianna Hallowell. She was born into the absolute apex of aristocracy, her veins coursing with elite blood. Yet, her reality is a devastating shade of gray. In this untouchable echelon, a woman, no matter her brilliant intellect or unparalleled grace, is never permitted to exist as an independent entity with her own voice. She is a carefully polished political instrument, a strategic asset weaponized by her own flesh and blood. The true horror of her existence doesn't manifest in physical bruises. It is far more insidious. It creeps through the calculating, predatory glares of her peers, the draconian standards dictating her every breath, and the utter suppression of her authentic emotions. The oppression is so masterfully disguised as privilege that one might ask how she dares to complain while wearing a fortune on her back. But the greatest tragedy of the human condition is not poverty. It is the brazen assassination of free will. In the icy eyes of her family, Gianna is merely a bargaining chip, measured solely by the titles her arranged marriage will secure. This ruthless backdrop forces us to confront a torturous dilemma. What is the true worth of a woman? By walking alongside Gianna, we bear witness to a violent cognitive awakening, a radiant metamorphosis to obliterate the gilded cage, no matter how much gold it took to build it. Narrator. To understand the magnitude of this metamorphosis, we must first examine the suffocating catalyst that ignited the spark of her rebellion, the formal announcement of her impending marriage to Lord Julian. He was not a monster in the traditional sense. He did not beat her or lock her away in a dark dungeon, which made the prison he represented infinitely harder to identify and escape. Julian was the perfect aristocrat, a man with eyes like polished obsidian and a heart just as impenetrable, viewing Gianna not as a breathing, feeling woman, but as a spectacular thoroughbred to be paraded at galas and bred for heirs. When the engagement was decreed by her father, the entire high society erupted in a chorus of sycophantic applause, celebrating the flawless, mathematically perfect merging of two immense fortunes. Lord Julian. You will be the finest jewel on my arm, Gianna. Smile for the cameras. Your family's legacy depends entirely on how gracefully you wear this ring. Narrator. But if you look closely into Gianna's eyes as the suffocatingly heavy diamond ring is slipped onto her finger, you do not see a bride's joy. You see the chilling, terrifying realization of a lifelong death sentence. It is in this exact, agonizing moment that the narrative shifts from a quiet, passive tragedy into a simmering thriller of the soul. Gianna looks at the glittering stone anchoring her hand and realizes that this is the final lock clicking into place on her gilded cage. For her entire life, she had flawlessly played the role of the dutiful daughter, smiling when she was bleeding inside, speaking only when her words could enhance her family's prestige, and allowing her brilliant, analytical mind to be hidden behind lace and pearls so as not to intimidate the fragile egos of the men around her. But gazing into her predetermined future with Julian, a future composed of endless, hollow banquets, polite conversations masking vicious betrayals, and a bed shared with a stranger who only valued her pedigree, something fundamental inside her fractures. This fracture is not a sign of weakness, it is the violent, beautiful birth of her autonomy. We as the audience watch, breathless, as the numbness that had protected her for so long begins to peel away, exposing a raw, furious desperation to truly live. She begins to ask the silent questions that women of her station are strictly forbidden to ask. Why must my body be the currency that buys my family's political leverage? Why is my intellect considered a dangerous liability? The profound brilliance of this story lies in how accurately it captures the terrifying isolation of waking up in a world where everyone else is perfectly content to keep sleepwalking. Gianna realizes that if she marries Julian, she will technically survive, swathed in velvet and drowning in vintage champagne, but the woman she was meant to be will be utterly obliterated. The realization crashes over her with the merciless force of a tidal wave. She cannot wait for a gallant hero to storm the castle walls. If she is going to survive the suffocating gravity of her own lineage, she must become her own savior, and that terrifying epiphany is the exact moment a compliant girl dies and a warrior is born. Narrator. But an internal awakening is merely the quiet prelude to a deafening war, and the moment Gianna dared to whisper her dissent, her own family transformed into her most ruthless executioners. The battlefield of this story is not fought with swords or artillery, but with whispered threats in drawing rooms, emotionally manipulative gaslighting, and the devastating weaponization of familial guilt. When Gianna first approaches her mother to express her profound dread of the marriage, we are subjected to one of the most painfully realistic depictions of generational trauma ever put to paper. Gianna. Mother, please, I cannot marry him. My soul is dying inside this house. I feel like a prisoner. Gianna's mother Gong Suklem, Tanyan. Danan Sututvong. Insolent child, do you think I married your father for love? A woman's duty is to suffer gracefully for the family name. You will wear that dress, you will walk down that aisle, and you will secure our bloodline. Narrator. Her mother does not scream, instead, she deploys a cold, surgical disappointment, reminding Gianna of the sacrifices made for her, effectively telling her that a woman's duty is to suffer gracefully for the elevation of the bloodline. It is a terrifying masterclass in psychological warfare. Her family circles her like elegantly dressed vultures, using every ounce of their influence to isolate her, cutting off her access to friends, monitoring her correspondence, and turning the sprawling ancestral manor into a high-security panopticon. We feel the walls closing in on her, the air growing thinner with every passing day as the wedding approaches. Society, too, turns its ugly head. The same aristocrats who praised her beauty now whisper vicious rumors about her sanity, because in a world built on absolute patriarchal control, a woman who says no is not just disobedient, she is clinically insane. Gianna is pushed to the absolute brink of madness, wandering the echoing halls of her estate like a ghost haunting her own life, desperately searching for a single ally in a sea of sycophants. It is here that we, the audience, are forced to confront our own complicity in the systems that bind us. How often do we surrender our own desires to appease the expectations of our parents, our culture, our society? Gianna's struggle is so universally palpable because she is fighting the very people she was biologically wired to love and trust. The emotional toll of this defiance is depicted with unflinching brutality. We see her sobbing on the cold marble floors, tearing at her own hair in frustration, utterly shattered by the realization that her parents love the idea of her far more than they love the human being she actually is. Yet, from this bottomless well of despair, a frighteningly calm resolve begins to crystallize. The psychological beatings do not break her into submission. Instead, they slowly forge her spirit into something unbreakable, stripping away her childhood naivety and replacing it with a cold, calculating understanding of her enemy. She realizes that reasoning with her captors is a fool's errand, and that if she wishes to claim her humanity, she must be willing to burn her own legacy to the ground. This section of her journey is an agonizing testament to the fact that freedom is never freely granted by the oppressor. It must be violently, unapologetically seized, even if it means tearing your own heart out in the process. Narrator. Standing on the precipice of total ruin, battered by the relentless storm of her family's wrath, Gianna was finally forced to make the terrifying leap that would define her existence forever. The climax of Gianna's choice does not occur at the altar in a cliché runaway bride sequence, but in the dead of night, in the agonizing silence of her own bedroom, where the true weight of her sacrifice comes crashing down. This is the moment the narrative transcends fiction and becomes a raw, bleeding testament to human courage. She stands before her towering mahogany wardrobe, staring at the millions of dollars worth of haute couture, the generational jewels sparkling maliciously in the moonlight, and the velvet-lined jewelry boxes that double as her chains. To leave means to walk away with absolutely nothing. It means becoming a pariah, erasing her name from the history books, and plunging into a world of poverty and anonymity that she has never been equipped to survive. The terror she feels is visceral, pulsating through the pages and the screen, making our own hearts race in sympathy. She meticulously strips off her silk nightgown, replacing it with the plain, rough wool of a servant's cloak she had smuggled into her quarters. Every button she fastens is a deliberate severing of a golden string. Every piece of jewelry she leaves on the vanity is a rejection of the toxic privilege that has defined her entire existence. The physical act of leaving her wealth behind is arguably more harrowing than a physical battle, because she is not just abandoning money, she is assassinating her own identity to give birth to a stranger. Narrator. When she finally steps out into the freezing, rain-soaked night, avoiding the estate guards and slipping through the wrought iron gates of her ancestral home, the sensory shift is jarring. Gone is the suffocating warmth of the manor, replaced by the biting, unforgiving wind of reality. She has no money, no powerful name to protect her, and no destination, but as the colossal mansion disappears into the fog behind her, an overwhelming, intoxicating wave of euphoria washes over the scene. The sheer audacity of her choice leaves us reeling, forcing us to ask ourselves what we would be willing to lose in order to find our true selves. Would we have the strength to walk away from guaranteed comfort to embrace the terrifying chaos of freedom? Gianna's escape is not portrayed as a glamorous adventure, but as a brutal, desperate clawing toward the surface by a woman who has been drowning since the day she was born. It is a profoundly moving sequence that strips away the romanticism of rebellion, showing us that the price of true autonomy is often everything you have ever known, paid in the currency of sheer, unadulterated terror. Narrator. Walking away from an empire leaves one with nothing but the clothes on their back, yet in the chilling embrace of the unknown, Gianna finally took her very first breath of uncontaminated air. The aftermath of her escape does not offer the audience a neatly packaged, fairy tale ending, and that is precisely what elevates this story to the realm of a timeless masterpiece. We see Gianna months later, her hands no longer soft and manicured, but calloused and stained from grueling, mundane labor in a bustling, unforgiving city far from the reach of her family's name. The opulent gowns have been permanently replaced by worn, practical fabrics, and the lavish, multi-course banquets have dwindled to simple, meager meals eaten in a cramped, drafty room. By society's materialistic metrics, she has fallen from grace, plummeting from the apex of the aristocracy into the invisible, grinding machinery of the working class. Yet, as the camera lingers on her face, Or, as the author details the quiet moments of her new life, a profound and undeniable truth reveals itself: she is radiant. There is a fierce, unapologetic light in her eyes that no amount of diamonds could ever have produced. When she speaks, it is her own voice, unedited by the fear of familial reprimand or the crushing weight of societal expectation. When she smiles, it is genuine, born from the simple, miraculous realization that she owns her own body, her own time, and her own mind. This stark contrast violently dismantles the lie that wealth and status are the ultimate pinnacles of human achievement. Gianna's journey teaches us that a cage is still a cage, no matter how brilliantly it shines, and that the privilege of making your own mistakes is worth infinitely more than a lifetime of guaranteed, luxurious subjugation. Her choice challenges us to look inward, to identify the invisible cages we have built around ourselves, be they toxic relationships, soul-crushing careers, or the paralyzing fear of societal judgment. Gianna's choice leaves us haunted and deeply moved, not because it is a story of a princess finding a prince, but because it is the harrowing, triumphant chronicle of a woman who chose to walk into the fire of the unknown rather than freeze to death in a palace of ice. It is a rallying cry for the human spirit, a brutal reminder that your life belongs to you and you alone, and that true freedom is never inherited, it is fiercely, painfully, and beautifully earned. As we close the book on Gianna's remarkable life, we are left fundamentally changed, armed with the unsettling but empowering knowledge that no matter how terrifying the dark may be, it is always better to walk freely through the night than to be securely chained in the light. Gianna's choice transcends the traditional confines of a rebellion narrative to deliver a visceral exploration of autonomy and the profound cost of true freedom. Her journey from the suffocating, gilded cage of aristocracy to the harsh but liberating reality of independence is a masterclass in psychological resilience. By rejecting the mathematically perfect but emotionally bankrupt marriage to Lord Julian, Gianna commits the ultimate act of self-preservation. She sacrifices insurmountable wealth, her societal identity, and her familial ties, stepping out of a life of guaranteed luxury into the perilous unknown. Yet, it is within this very sacrifice that her true identity is fiercely forged. The narrative brilliantly juxtaposes the opulent poverty of her former life with the triumphant hardship of her new existence, proving that true wealth lies in the absolute ownership of one's own mind, body, and choices. Gianna's metamorphosis from a compliant, silenced daughter into an unbreakable warrior serves as a hauntingly beautiful reminder that freedom is never freely given by oppressive systems. It must be unapologetically seized. Ultimately, her story is not merely a tale of escaping an arranged marriage, but a universal testament to the human spirit's capacity to shatter the invisible chains of expectation and forge a destiny entirely its own, no matter the agonizing price. The most striking takeaway from Gianna's journey is that comfort, privilege, and societal approval can easily become the most suffocating prisons of all. Living authentically often demands a terrifying sacrifice, teaching us that true autonomy is not about achieving a life devoid of struggle, but rather choosing the struggles that genuinely belong to you. In our current society, we frequently trap ourselves in modern gilded cages, staying in soul-crushing careers merely for the status, maintaining toxic relationships due to the fear of loneliness, or abandoning our true passions to meet the rigid expectations of our families and peers. To apply Gianna's courage, we must conduct a brutally honest audit of our own lives to identify where we are trading our authenticity for artificial security. You can begin by setting firm boundaries with those who value your compliance over your happiness, and practicing the courage to say no to societal milestones that do not align with your internal values. True liberation begins the moment you decide your own peace of mind and self-respect are worth infinitely more than the world's applause. What is one gilded cage, or societal expectation in our modern world, that you think many people find themselves trapped in today? Please kindly share your thoughts in the comments section below, so we can all exchange perspectives and learn from one another. If you found this analysis deeply meaningful, please subscribe to the channel to support our work and give us the motivation to continue creating more thought-provoking content for you.